It was during this journey that I found Susan. Had we not found them, Susan and the baby might have collapsed from the cold. Realizing this possibility made me shiver. It must have been tough. But why were you acting so hostile towards my wife? Curious, my husband asked, and Susan, looking away awkwardly, answered. Apparently, Susan had been raised to believe the lie that I was a bad person, indoctrinated by her mother from a young age. My sister told her, I was bullied by my sister when I was young. She is a bad person, so you mustn't get close to her, thus ensuring Susan stayed away from me. Of course, that was a lie from my sister, but for a child, a mother's words are everything. Without verifying the truth, Susan had always perceived me as the enemy who bullies her mom. However, seeing how my husband and I were genuinely trying to help them, Susan began to question what her mother had told her. Is what Mommy said true? Did you bully Mom? Susan asked with direct eyes, and I shook my head. Your mom and I got along when we were kids. If you can't believe it, you should ask Grandma and Grandpa. Tears streamed down her face. I'm sorry for being so defiant when you were just trying to help. I'm sorry for hating you all this time because I believed what Mom said. Understanding the reason behind Susan's long-standing dislike for us, I felt relieved but also harbored strong anger towards my sister. According to Susan, my sister wouldn't be returning until tomorrow, so for tonight, we decided to take Susan and the baby into our home. Susan started to engage in normal conversation with us, albeit still a bit awkwardly. Feeling her mood lighten, I asked Susan about her usual life while we ate dinner at our house. It seems that even before the baby was born, Susan often had to stay home alone. During those times, my sister neither prepared meals in advance nor gave her money for food, leaving Susan hungry. I felt a simmering anger at my sister's selfish actions. After making sure Susan and the baby had their fill and had gone to sleep, I called my parents to plan revenge against my sister. The next day, my husband and I, along with Susan and the baby, headed to my sister's house. My parents were already waiting there, and my mother rushed over to hug Susan and the baby the moment she saw them. Susan, you must have been through so much, you did well. Held by my mother, Susan quietly cried. Then, we decided to wait for my sister to return. While leaving Susan with my mother, I went around the neighborhood to inquire about my sister's conduct. When I mentioned how my sister had been neglecting Susan and the baby to go out, most neighbors were outraged. And shared details about my sister's usual cold behavior towards Susan, including often yelling at her loudly. Having learned that my sister was expected to return home sometime after noon today, my parents and I waited for her. I had called my sister's cell phone to inform her that we had taken Susan in for the night and were waiting at her house, but as expected, my sister did not respond. So, without regard for my sister, my parents and I awaited her return in front of her house. Eventually, my sister returned with a few of her friends. Huh? Why are you here? And Mom and Dad too. What do you want? Upon seeing me, my sister immediately scowled, showing her displeasure. Undeterred, I glared back at her. Last night, we found Susan walking with the baby, so we took them in. I tried contacting you several times, but you never noticed. Besides me, the police and our parents should have also left numerous calls about this incident. Pointing this out to my sister, who seemed oblivious, made her frantically check her phone. Seeing her call history, the color drained from my sister's face. Seeing the missed calls from the police too, she must have realized the seriousness of the situation. I have something I need to do after this. So, I'll be. Wait a minute. Where do you think you're going? My dad grabbed my sister by the scruff of her neck as she tried to flee. Caught by our father, my sister momentarily struggled and thrashed, but soon gave up and hung her head in resignation. Our parents have always been very strict about manners and etiquette, and from a young age, they drilled into us the importance of upholding such values. I'm grateful to our parents for instilling in us the right manners and postures, but my sister never took kindly to these so-called callous way of things, always found a way to escape from my parents' form of upbringings, and, it seemed, disliked them for it. This wasn't lost on our parents, especially Dad, whose behavior appeared to have been markedly more severe towards her. Maybe that's why, even as an adult, my sister still harbored an unease or discomfort around our father. When my return was met with a row, and especially when my sister attempted to escape only to be detained by our father, her friends there buzzed with unease. In front of them, our parents did not hold back. They vehemently reproached her over her recent misdeeds, and in their time, the mistreatment of her children. How could you even think about leaving a 9-year-old and an infant alone to go on a vacation? Even if Susan is reliable, she's still a child. Tasking her with the absolute care of an infant is inexcusable. Call yourself a mother. And this isn't a one-off thing. You've been making Susan stay at home by herself frequently, and on top of not preparing any meals for her. Do you even have any